And now, the Lowdown, with economist and political strategist Elson Low.
Good evening, and welcome to the Lowdown. Folks, we have got a great show for you tonight, a very special show. I'm coming to you from the Arthur Chung Convention Center. Folks, you know we've got the budget debates going on over the course of the last week and next week. So this is a really critical time. We're looking at this national budget. So folks, this is going to be a really interesting show. We're going to discuss the budget a little later with Marvin Williams. We had a great conversation on this. And shortly, I'm going to be speaking with MP Ricky Ramsaroop on Guyana's oil and gas industry. So folks, share that link. You know it. Share the link. Give everyone a chance to see the show. Welcome to the Lowdown. It's going to be a really interesting, really unusual show tonight as we go over these various issues. Folks, you know this budget has been a massive disappointment for so many people. Hardly anything to the average Guyanese. The budget has totally ignored the cost of living crisis, which is the biggest crisis really across the world right now. And so a lot of people are worried about this coming year. So we're going to discuss all these things tonight, folks. But we're going to kick off with MP Ramsaroop in just a minute. So share the link, folks. Share that link. Let's give everyone a chance to see the show tonight. Let's give everyone a chance to be part of the Lowdown. Thank you as always for tuning in. You know I'm always happy to start my Saturday night on a high with you here on the Lowdown. So thank you very much and share that link. We're coming to you from the Arthur Chung Convention Center where all week there's been budget debates. So share that link, folks. All right, well, we're just going to bring in MP Ramsaroop right now as we kick the conversation off. MP, first of all, glad to have you on the show and glad to hear your opinion as the budget debate continues.
Thank you, Elson, and I'm happy to be in the program. And, I'm happy as a young person and economist are pushing this agenda
Absolutely.
to ensure that our economy is going to the right direction, giving the influx of this new revenue stream called oil and gas.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being on. I know that we've had a really difficult period this last year in the oil industry because on the one hand, we've seen tremendous growth and so on in terms of production. But on the other hand, man, we've seen really unbelievable mismanagement. One of the key things that's happened that's caused a lot of alarm is where we saw that Guyana had the first oil spill and where we didn't really see the government come up with any kind of a proper, thorough investigation or at least put that to the public so that we understood, first of all, what happened, and second of all, what measures are being taken to ensure it doesn't happen again. I don't know if you had had any thoughts on that oil spill. I know that concerns so many Guyanese.
Yeah, so I saw that clip that was pointed out by that fisherman, and I did mention it in my speech.
Yeah.
And I said that report disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And Elson, and this is the danger. This is what I'm scared of.
Yeah.
And that is the reason why when I started my presentation, I focused on the environment.
Yeah.
And when I look into the budget, there was no specific amount of money to build that capacity.
Yes, exactly.
You understand me? If you recall, we had $1 million from IDB to build a capacity for the right skill set of people to tackle those issues.
Yeah.
And oil spill was one of them.
Absolutely.
And it's shocking to learn that they will use satellite to spot oil spill. Let me tell you, viewers, what is it? You do not spot oil spill. It means it already happened. What you do is to set up a system in place to do what you call a preventative oil spill.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And what you do is to set up a system in place to do what you call a preventative oil spill. What you do is to set up a system in place to do what you call a preventative oil spill. What you do is to set up a system in place to do what you call a preventative oil spill. Therefore, that you have to be on site.
Yeah.
You have to get the skills. You have to ensure that the technocrats, them that we're going to be trained, and to build a capacity to look at the technology and those aspect of areas that will and can cause an oil spill.
Absolutely.
And that is what has been absent.
Yeah.
And it's troublesome because every single penny we earn now can be disappearing in the future. And for the plunge, our youths, our current, future, and to for them to feel like a burden on the economy. And you as economists know what that spells.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, oil spills are never small matters, and when they happen, it's billions and billions of dollars to actually clean up that oil. It's an entire process. It causes massive environmental degradation. It can kill out wildlife in the surrounding area, and so on. So it's really a very serious issue.
If I can, Elson, in my budget speech, I quoted Macondo oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. It was estimated to go to $70 billion US.
Yeah.
But to date, it has gone to $145 billion US to clean that spill. And that is what I really want to hammer home to our people to understand the cost of such an hazard to happen. You understand?
It's no small cost.
It's not
small cost. And over the years, you've had various spills. There was the BP oil blowout that almost bankrupted that company as well. And to that end, one of the things that I know that you feel strongly about is that we need to have the appropriate
insurance coverage.
Yeah. So as it stands, while the permits indicate that there is supposed to be full coverage insurance, parent company liability, so that it's not just the small company here in Guyana, ESSO, but Exxon more broadly and the partners CNOC and Hess that have insurance coverage. The permits for the development of these offshore oil production areas indeed indicate we're supposed to have that.
Yes.
But the government has chosen not to enforce the permits.
And you see, and that is what I call in my presentation, the breaching the old law. That was one quote. The second one I made, it is what you call pay to pollute, no EIA government. Now, I say that because you as a government, you have the charge. We demand, and that's why I put something on my Facebook social media pages. I demand them to sign a full coverage liability insurance plus a parent company guarantee. So let me tell you the importance of the parent company guarantee. You see, they told this government that they're going to have to put the insurance of $600 million US insurance. I just quote to you $145 billion US advanced bill cost. We're nowhere on that. When I did the calculation, it came up to $144.12 billion remaining. So if you take away the $600 million, and you do the math, you'll see what remaining is. Who's going to cover that amount?
Exactly.
Who's going to cover that amount in case a spill like that happen? I'm praying that it doesn't happen.
Of course.
That's why I'm demanding that the parent company guarantee, because if you ask the question, why would, and it doesn't cost anything, that is the hurtful part. The parent company guarantee doesn't cost the company, Exxon, neither government of Guyana, no money. It's zero. It's a simple agreement letter done by your lawyer or whatever, saying that, you know what, we have an insurance here, but we are going to give you a parent company guarantee that in case a hazard to happen, we are going to take full responsibility. Now, if they don't want to sign that, they're telling you some questions. What are they telling you? They're telling you, you know what, we're going to wrap up when we be gone.
Yeah, well, what I'd say is even if it did cost them, ultimately we can't be allowing Guyana to suffer the negatives of a spill. We have to ensure that the safeguards are in place so that we don't have a disaster that soaks up all the oil resources that we are trying to benefit from. That's the opposite of what we're looking for.
Absolutely.
And one thing that we also want to point out to viewers is, the thing about oil spills is they don't stay in one spot. The ocean currents will carry them, the wind will carry them. And then there's also a question now, given the currents and so on, as to whether an oil spill would end up with oil in Trinidad, oil in Venezuela. There might be some concern Now that would create all sorts of tension with our neighbors.
Absolutely, and I mentioned it within the
Yeah.
budget speech that it will affect the countries like Barbados and
Yeah.
Trinidad,
Yeah.
those countries that are highly depending on tourism. So you're
Yeah.
going to kill the tourism industry.
It could.
You're going to kill the ecology that's below the sea,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
marine life, the birds
Yeah.
that's going to feed
Yeah,
on the shore
absolutely.
of the ocean.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it's kind of dry. It would really put a pressure on the
Chain
economy.
effect,
Yeah.
a serious chain effect. Now,
Yeah.
you know, the anxiety that I think you're referring to is what if this oil spill starts to wash up on the beaches
Yeah.
of some of these various tourism spots? And like I said, the thing about oil spills, they don't stay in one spot, they move around. So if that happens, then you can imagine a beach covered with oil in Trinidad or Barbados, no one's going to go there. It's going to have very serious ramifications for the country if this is allowed.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, so when you're going to spend that amount of money to clean your, let's say you spend 145
Yeah.
billion. Let me just use the same, for
Yeah.
argument's sake, a same level of oil spill. You still have to put additional money to those countries
Exactly.
because they're going to come after you.
Exactly.
I use another example, and this is where Guyana is making the same mistake.
Mm.
In Peru,
Mm.
the Repsol,
Yeah.
which is in Guyana here.
Yeah.
Repsol was over there when the oil spill came.
Yeah.
They didn't take the responsibility. Government had to go now to the court
Force them
to
do
force them now to do it, and took a long haul.
Yeah, yeah.
Now the Peru government is learning from that, and the Peru government now
Yeah.
is been redrafting their contracts and their agreements and the
Yeah.
permits and all these things.
Yeah.
So all we are asking for, it's within the permit, as I said.
Yeah.
The EIAs have it,
Yeah.
and you need to ensure
Yeah.
is that as a government you protect yourself and the
Yeah.
countries and citizens of the Guyana.
One of the things that I think is really absurd as citizens think about this issue is it's not that we're saying that there needs to be an imposition of this new insurance.
Yeah,
There already exist provisions.
correct.
The government is choosing not to protect Guyanese from these risks.
And that is what I'm so disappointed with. That's what scares me
Yeah,
because I know the danger. When you do your research and you look at the
Absolutely.
other countries, what's happening,
yeah,
it scares you. And that's why I wanted to ensure that our viewers
Yeah.
understand the magnitude
Yeah.
of an oil spill, what can happen.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Viewers, it's very, very concerning. I'm glad that MP Ramshoot has brought that to your attention. It's really something that we have to continue to press the government on. And, that's the thing about the government is that even when Guyanese have legitimate rights, they don't exercise those rights. This is, I think, very similar to what's going on with Guyana, the audit of the $7 billion of cost oil expenses. Viewers, after Exxon invests money to develop an oil field, they'll take that money back out through cost oil. So when they produce oil, some of the oil they put aside to pay for the expenses of developing the field. That's the normal practice. However, what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to audit them to check to see, all right, well, what did you actually spend on and so on? What are the costs of these different things that you spent on? To ensure that we're getting value for money and that the costs are not inflated. Unfortunately, many countries have faced costs that are inflated. And as a result, the benefit they get, the revenue they get is much reduced. Now, what we've seen with this government is, first of all, and this may jog your thinking on this, MP, we saw that the deadline for the audit, which was a 2-year deadline, elapsed. Government did not do the audit within the time it was supposed to elapse. They then had to go and ask the company for permission to go and audit after the time had elapsed. Now that was done, we're hearing about the audit itself, but there are some questions as to whether the audit will actually be checking to see if costs are inflated. Now the government is trying to say, oh, that's not what they have to focus on. But the plain words of the PSA say that in order for you to recover these costs, they have to be competitive costs. They have to be reasonable costs, which is another way of saying that they can be inflated and ridiculous. So that's right within Guyana's rights, but the question is whether or not that is actually what they're doing in this audit. And then the last question, viewers, if those questions weren't bad enough. The audit is now, it was supposed to be released since September.
Yes.
This is January. As we young people said, brothers, what's going on here?
So Elson, and
Yeah.
I'm happy that you're looking into the audit because the audit is really measure the cost because we have a cap.
Yeah.
But these guys are going to use the advantage
They can
of
use all
using
sorts of
figures.
Yeah.
And let me tell you what. So when they came with the local content policy,
Yeah.
they wanted to use within the what do you call it, the accounting
Yeah.
for persons to be in that area.
Yeah.
They had about 20% of local people to do the audit. So we proposed, and I was behind it,
Yeah.
and we proposed this to have 90% of local persons to be
Absolutely, sure.
within that thing. And they changed it, they changed it.
Yeah.
Of course, they put it in their own word,
Yeah.
but I'm happy that they put it because we
Exactly.
wanted that. Now,
Yeah.
when you put them there now,
Yeah.
and they're using local audit, the I don't know if I just say this here, but you're using people of your friends to do this thing.
Well,
And
we want to ensure that we have the best possible audit. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And that now I think is really the concern because what we're hearing in terms of what the audit is actually checking for, not sure that they're checking for what they're supposed to be checking for.
that's why I say the experience, the
Yeah.
experience of putting the right thing, the right consortium.
Yeah.
There's a consortium of 3 local companies,
Yes.
probably with some international.
Well, what
persons.
we would also say is we need to see what the terms of reference are so that we know what exactly they've asked the auditors to do. Because it sounds like the auditors are just checking if the line items are things that can be recovered and not checking the prices themselves to see if the prices are reasonable. And, one of the concerns with the audit is, if it's 10% that we're being overcharged, man, that's 700 million US.
Right. So it might look like it was a small figures, but when you do the math,
It's not.
yes, it's way over that. So therefore,
Yeah.
what I want to come out there, Rick, is the secrecy,
Mm-hmm.
the secrecy of the government not publishing the information,
Yeah.
which is supposed to be that audit report should already be on the EITI website.
Thank you.
The EITI website is where that report is supposed to be published.
Yeah.
And if you listen to the former
Yeah.
minister, the Minister of Natural Resources, who said they are preparing the third
Yeah.
report, I don't think
Yeah.
that report will be published on time because the absence of information.
Yeah.
Because for you to provide that third report,
Exactly.
because I was on the EITI board, I'm a former member of the
Sure.
EITI
Okay,
board.
great.
I know the information that you have to put forward
Yeah.
to those people in,
Yeah, exactly.
there, the IA.
Yeah.
You call it the international auditors. That
Sure.
you need to know what information they're putting here. And if they don't get it, they're not going to provide your report.
Yeah.
If they do submit a report to you, you're going to see they're going to highlight it and flag it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
This
gonna
is
flag
missing.
it.
This is missing. And so
Yeah, and give you a timeline to provide that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, the thing of it is, I believe that it was last Monday that the minister said that he was going to provide a report, an update on the audit. No updates. Then when you look back in December, early December, President said, well, there's been a delay. We're going to get the audit soon. No audit. Folks, we cannot be in a situation where we're just being chased around and around and around.
Absolutely, as well. I mean, we are Guyanese people. This is a new revenue stream I mentioned. Come aboard. This is the
Yeah.
patrimony of the Guyanese people.
Exactly.
Every man on the street, even the beggars, are entitled to this
Everyone
patrimony
is
of Guyana.
entitled to the
Every person is entitled for it, and therefore we need to have answers. So,
Yeah.
I want to tell the viewers that we are talking here now, but when we return back to government, we are going to continue to build on what we left. We are the one who brought on the transparency of the EITI in Guyana here. They ran from it. We brought it on here. We are going to continue to build on that to ensure that you have easy access, because that was one of the objectives of the EITI.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was to ensure that an ordinary Guyanese can go
Yeah.
online
Yeah.
and
Information.
to check it and see. So you don't have to go and ask anybody now.
Yeah.
The audit report should already be there.
Exactly.
So people like independent civil society, like Christopher Ram and
Yeah.
so on, who do a very good job on auditing these things, and go on and have a look at it.
Yeah, and I think it would also be good for Parliament's Public Accounts Committee
course,
to be able
of
to look at
course.
it. Because an audit of $7 billion of expenses is no small thing. So we want to definitely be focusing on that. Now, the other concern I would say is this: we've also seen an audit for the pre-contract costs that we commissioned from IHS Market. That not be released
Neither, yeah.
Now we can't seriously as a country be thinking to ourselves that we're just going to not audit and hide audits forever and ever. Because when you start to add up the cost, this is not the last audit Guyana will have to do. Guyana could easily have to do 20 audits,
Yeah, because if you look at the pace
Yeah,
that
of the
we're
oil
going at,
development.
it might you're talking about 25, 30 years
Yeah,
of
yeah.
oil
And
and gas
every couple of
business.
years, you have to audit
You have
all
to do an
over
audit,
again.
right? So indeed,
Yeah.
you're right. There are going to be several audits need to be done.
And this, it maybe, it's probably that several other companies will discover oil and produce. Uh, I mean, it's not just Exxon we're talking about. There's a wide range of
Absolutely,
companies.
absolutely, absolutely.
So that's how we're gonna conduct ourselves. Just
Yeah.
you can rob us. We don't have a problem. That's the
No, no, no,
approach
no.
we
You can't.
can.
Yeah, you can't do that. And yeah, no, I'm right that I'm so happy that you're raising that aspect of it
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
you know, and that's what I admire young economists like
Oh, well,
you.
we gotta
You
keep
push the
firing.
direction as to what had to be done, and you
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
checking on it. Right now, I got somebody in the U.S. who is researching on oil and gas more
yeah.
depth in detail to
Good,
check
good.
every single thing. What is heartful, I want to mention this here too, is to date, we have not got the Natural Resources Sectoral Committee
Mm,
for Parliament
yes,
activated.
yeah.
And that
Very
that that
problematic.
committee there, Eslan, is where I could have asked the question or
Yeah,
asked the minister
yeah.
to provide the auditor report.
Yes,
The
exactly.
auditor report.
Yeah,
What is going on there?
yeah.
Can we do a visit to go on the rig, see what's
Exactly.
happening?
So.
These are what the committee
Yeah.
sector is supposed to be doing.
Yes, absolutely.
You understand?
We don't seem to be governing as if we know that we have oil. I mean, I don't understand how basic committees like that
Yeah.
can be sidelined when you have to take the oil industry seriously. But the government either doesn't take it seriously or
And I
is
and
intent on.
my fear
Yes.
is because we are pushing for these insurance liability and so on.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to know. I don't know if you want to touch on
Yeah.
the gas and shore because
Yeah.
as we're on the environmental impacts,
Yeah.
one of the thing that I want to touch there
Yeah.
is that the gas and shore project
Yeah.
they have an EIA,
Yeah.
but what is missing from the EIA
Yeah.
is the same thing like the oil spill. There's supposed to be what we call a management
Sure.
plan leak, a
Okay.
management leak plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that is absent from that EIA.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
And I can understand why the consultant for that project, for Exxon, who did that
Yeah.
consultant, did not include the management leak
Yeah.
plan
Well, if
into
there's a
that
gas
document.
leak,
Right.
that's also a problem.
It's a huge problem, explosive, because given the
Exactly.
constraint of the pipeline,
Yeah.
because um,
Yeah.
there was this report also, for we call from
Yeah.
Alison Redford.
Yes, yes, I recall.
Alison Redford, and up to now, that was government hired a
Not been
consultant
released.
from the Canadian. Up to now, they can't release that report,
Exactly.
and we are calling for them to release the Alison Redford because what we want to show,
Yeah.
because we know what the report
Yeah.
suggests, but they go against the recommendations
Yeah.
of that report, which
Yeah.
means therefore they went against their own law.
Exactly. Again,
And that is
their
what I want to
own
establish.
consultation against the own advice that they had asked for. Folks, we have talked about this natural gas spills. If you've ever seen it, you can actually see a natural gas spill is a very shocking thing to see because you have all this gas bubbling up from under the water, affecting the environment. And if it catches on fire, of course, that's its own other problem. So these are concerns, environmental concerns, I think are really critical when it comes to Guyana's oil and gas industry, whether it is oil, whether it is natural gas. But the common denominator here is that the government doesn't seem to have any interest in dealing with, assessing, and mitigating the risks that are involved. It's just 100% go straight on ahead, and you hope that nothing will. I guess they walk around with lucky seeds in the pockets. Viewers, we want to thank MP Ramstrip so much for coming on. We want to thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned. We're going to have Marvin Williams on for a talk more generally about the budget. MP Ramstrip, I don't know if you had any closing thoughts.
The whole thing is that I want demanding the
Yes.
Exxon company to come forward
Yes.
and provide to the Guyanese people, there's a parent company guaranteeing
Yeah.
that we can feel safer with.
Exactly.
But what I also propose to you, Elson, is for us to do part 2
Absolutely.
of this program because I wanted to talk about
Yeah.
I want to continue to talk about
Yes.
the carbon credits.
Yeah, that's a good other area we can flesh out. So we'll have the MP back on. Viewers, again, thank you, and keep an eye out. We're going to switch now to another conversation more broadly on the budget going forward. So thank you for tuning in to the Lowdown, and keep on watching.
Welcome to Budget Chat, the lunchtime edition. I'm Marvin Williams. Elson Low is with me, and we are going to examine the budget 2023, perhaps for another 30 minutes or so. Thank you very much for joining us, and we hope that you can stay with us even as you munch on lunch. Elson.
Yes.
A lot of what came out in the budget debate from the opposition parliamentary representatives spoke to the issue of cost of living.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, cost of living seemed to have eluded the architects of Budget 2023. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization recently issued a report where they said that 5% of the Guyana's population is undernourished.
Yeah.
And a further 43% of the population cannot afford a healthy food diet.
Yeah.
Essentially, 48% of the Guyanese population is in abject poverty. Yet we have a mammoth budget, the largest in Guyana's history.
Yeah, of course.
We have oil flowing and revenues pouring into the natural resources coffers. What is required of the architects of this budget? What kind of a mindset are they putting on display when they completely ignore the cost of living, the most impacting situation on the lives of all Guyanese?
Well, this should really be a bountiful time because you've got, as you said, oil flowing, you've got a large budget, there's resources available to help people. Guyana is benefiting from the high oil price. But what has happened is the PUP has created a bit of a famine here where they're just allowing citizens to, first of all, be squeezed by the high inflation, the high cost of living. But second of all, they're not allowing the benefits that have come from the rapid expansion of the economy to be distributed in a way that deals with poverty, that deals with these concerns about people being able to feed themselves, that deals with these core issues. And you don't even hear them talk about poverty and inequality and these sorts of things, because that's not part of their agenda and their mindset. And if you don't care about things like poverty and inequality, then it's no surprise that you're not going to put anything really in a budget to deal with those types of issues. So now you've got in this budget less than 1% going towards dealing directly with the cost of living crisis. And in terms of the overall benefits, whether it's cash grants, whether it's increasing pension, 1.7%, these sorts of afterthought numbers. And at the same time, the budget is 41% larger than it was last year. So there's a big budget, but there's next to nothing there for the average person in this time of crisis.
Interestingly, 41% larger, and only 1% of that entire budget is set aside to mitigate the circumstances associated with cost of
less
living.
than 1%.
Less than 1%. Now, even in the setting aside of that less than 1%, there is a murky water situation. Where this $5 billion is put there without a defined plan, without policies associated with how it's going to be getting into the hands of the working force. So,
and the other thing we must recall is that $5 billion has been set aside, the same as the $5 billion that was set aside last year. And obviously last year we weren't able to tame the cost of living crisis. So there's no reason to think that $5 billion will be enough. Now, what they're going to do with it, I don't know if they're going to do the same thing as last year, which was not effective, or something different. But what I can tell you is this. Last year, Guyana, because of the high oil price, they had nearly around about $60 billion from oil revenue that we did not even expect to make. That's the unanticipated gains from the war in Ukraine and all these things that sent the oil price to the roof. Now, you would think that at a minimum, the government would say we're going to put the unexpected $60 billion towards cost of living mitigation, direct cost of living mitigation.
Or even a windfall tax to directly
what we've talked about is a sliding scale tax. When the oil price is above a certain level, you can get a bit more revenue. But the point of it being that we must not let the government get away with this kind of attitude that there aren't resources, when clearly there are resources for them to spend on 12 other things. We must always make sure that they know that we know that they made a huge amount of excess money, unexpected revenues last year, that the oil price remains elevated, and that the country is producing quite a lot. So it is, I think,
Sweet oil too,
ridiculous.
not
Yeah, like
regular
sweet
fuel.
oil, golden hour. I mean, we were actually going to surpass Trinidad and Tobago in per capita GDP this year. And our oil production, viewers, as I say, you gotta understand oil will be understood. Rice, sugar, bauxite. Our oil production this year will be twice as high as Trinidad and Tobago's peak oil production. So, folks, we're not talking about chicken feed here. It is what is going on is that the government is deliberately creating a situation where people have to remain in poverty and have to remain food insecure, unable to figure out where their next meal is going to come from, not getting a good diet, malnourished. That is not something that has to happen. The government is choosing to make it happen.
Oh, again, another interesting point here is that on the one hand, cost of living, its impact, its obvious consequences are being ignored by the architects of Budget 2023, notwithstanding the theme. On the other hand, there's a heavy, very, very heavy emphasis on infrastructure. Some necessary, some not so necessary, some that can be delayed. And this is happening at a time when the World Bank is saying that 42 cents out of every Guyana dollar invested in public infrastructure goes someplace else other than to the project for which it was voted. Now, should there not be better management, greater levels of accountability in the administration of these large infrastructure projects, so that you can actually get maximum value for money spent or invested? And so you have a larger pie available to mitigate the consequences of cost of
Well,
living.
I said this thing. Well, it's actually the IMF that came up with that estimates. And I think it would not surprise the Guyanese to know that we're not getting value for money. I often bring up, a road is supposed to last you 20 years, but in Guyana, if a road lasts you 1 year,
9 months.
I
Maybe
mean, you're
so.
lucky, right? But, and what we've got to understand also, it all ties back to the question of the type of wealth we had. If we had wealth from big software companies or something, it'd be a different economy. But because it's an oil economy, there are specific risks. Now, when you look at other oil economies, you've got prevalent poverty and so on. You look at a place like Equatorial Guinea. Per capita GDP higher than Spain, 75% of the population living in poverty. Now, Equatorial Guinea is also very famous for infrastructure. They build big highways where there aren't people. They build schools where people don't live. They build airports on islands that are uninhabited. The purpose of the infrastructure is to steal. Now, folks, you may say, you guys are blowing this thing out of proportion, but do you understand, fellow Guyanese, do you understand that this year we'll be spending almost as much on roads, bridges, and drains as on healthcare and education combined? Who does that? That is unbelievable. Just roads, bridges, and drains. We haven't talked about housing, which is another element of infrastructure.
But it's a communist orientation. You spend money, large sums of money on huge edifices. People can see these things. People can, oh wow, look at that building. But it's not functional like Skeldon Estate, Skeldon Factory. It's not functional. It serves no purpose. It sucks the economy. It prevents citizens from benefiting from resources that they ordinarily ought to benefit from because of the drain that it has become. Skeldon, for example, again.
But a failed in terms of
absolutely. And these large projects that have been undertaken are along the same lines of Skeldon. Improper studies, no studies at all. In the case of the Skeldon factory, there were all sorts of issues with soil testing not being done, inappropriate design of the building for the soil type, and the
location. But the PDP doesn't like feasibility studies.
Well, that's the point. So it is almost as though these projects are designed to fail.
Yeah. Well,
and the shrinkage, one moment here, what is interesting is that between 2006, 2011, late Winston Murray, economist, had in fact established through studies that the shrinkage, that leakage of revenues from our budget amounted to 20% per project. The PPP was out of government from 2015 to 2020. They're back now, and that 20% shrinkage has grown to 42%.
Yeah, well, that is, I think, like I said, doesn't surprise Guyanese. I'll give our viewers some perspective on this. Viewers, I want you to reflect on the fact that this year's budget is nearly twice the size of the budget of only a couple of years ago. Nearly twice the size, 100% increase. Viewers, does it feel to you like you're getting double the amount of government services, double the quality of government services, twice as much from the government? Or does it feel kind of like every other year where you're getting something but nothing spectacular? That is what is going on, is that money is being spent. We're not getting any kind of value for money out of this.
The measure of improved quality of life, budget to budget, has got to be the measure that you've just identified. Is your life better now than it was following the last budget?
Absolutely.
Do you see any indication that your life, the quality of your life will improve following the implementation of the projects in this budget? The answer is clearly no.
Absolutely.
Now, this government, and if you listen to the government benchers, when they speak, we spent this, we spent that, we spent this, we spent the other. It's all about numbers. It's all about quantifying dollars. There is absolutely no measure of outcome, no indicators that are used to measure outcome, no sense of whether the quality of life has improved by their own measure. Because the essential truth here is that the People's Progressive Party is 5% of the population that it relies on. Is guaranteed significant benefit from these infrastructure programs. And the People's Progressive Party, in return, is guaranteed the necessary kickbacks to do its electioneering work.
Friends, family, and favorites is what we try to stress a lot.
Yeah, but we have to break this down so our viewers understand what is really happening. These large infrastructure projects are designed to put money into the coffers of the well-connected to the People's Progressive Party, so that those 42 cents from every dollar, some of it comes back to the PPP for its electioneering. That's what people need to be advised of.
That's the core of really the issue, and what I think is holding back again in this regard is that there's so much corruption. There's so much of a focus on things that are aimed at corruption that citizens can't seem to see. It's funny that we're talking about citizens struggling to see some hope on the horizon, struggling to make ends meet, when the country is immensely wealthy and revenues are growing at these terrific rates. It is crazy to imagine that this is what we're talking about. We should be talking about how we're going to improve schools and their curriculum and so on. But instead, we have to talk about the way that the money is being siphoned off. Again, viewers, who spends almost as much as healthcare and education combined
in infrastructure,
on roads, bridges, and drains? And there's other types of infrastructure that's just roads, bridges, and drains.
And we can say to viewers, without fear of contradiction, that it is the same folks who have been saying that citizens cannot eat concrete roads, citizens cannot eat bridges. These are the same people
when they were
who now in government who are telling you that all of this massive infrastructure work is essential developmental projects. So the hypocrisy, the duplicity of this.
And no one is saying that we don't need infrastructure. What we're saying is that you've got to get the balance right. And also, You have to recognize that different circumstances require different responses. This is the worst cost of living crisis for 40 years, the worst inflation here and abroad that we've been really seeing. How can you just not respond to the worst cost of living crisis in 40 years? Especially when you know that the cost of living, inflation, and food inflation in particular, impacts those at the lower end of the income scale, the poor, the most. That to me is unbelievably callous and shows that the government's priorities are all over the place. It's like they don't even live in Guyana or they don't even care.
Here's your tune to Budget Chat, the lunch break edition. I'm Marvin Williams. Together with Elson Low, we're examining certain aspects of Budget 2023. Elson, as if it is not bad enough that the question of cost of living is completely ignored.
Yeah.
And it's another communist orientation that says if you ignore something, it doesn't exist. If you tell a lie often enough, it is believed.
Enough resembles the truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is the People's Progressive Party. That's where they're coming from.
Yeah.
But outside of cost of living being ignored, where are the indicators of a good life? Where are the performance indicators of a good? No one from the government has spoken about life expectancy that I have heard. Forgive me if I missed it, but I have not heard anything of impact, anything of significance on the question of infant mortality, maternal mortality. I have not so far heard anything of how the national insurance, that major social security network that we have, that safety net, how it's going to be improved for the benefit of our pensioners and our working population who are affected by incapacity for work due to illness, old age, and so on. We have not heard anybody talking about the importance of improving the doctor to patient ratio. We've not heard of measures to improve this whole question of teacher to student ratio. We know that we are faced with a very serious situation with that is being enabled by visa-free travel to the UK, with our nurses leaving in large numbers.
No, well, one of the things I also try to emphasize, because it has a really serious impact on the economy in both the short and longer term, is that, when it comes to education, the performance is despite the government spending so much more, it's been worse than under the coalition. We had 43% pass rate at mathematics with a budget that was almost half the size of the budget last year. And last year's pass rate was 34% in mathematics. What that means is that the number of students, and of course the ministry is aiming for 50% of students now, 5 subjects or more, including maths and English. But if you can't pass 34% on math, then clearly you'll never be able to reach that 50% that you're aiming for. You'll never be able to get the numbers that you're aiming for. How are you spending nearly twice as much, 75% more, I believe? And your pass rates, that's the first thing. The second thing is, when you look at it now on a primary school level, NGSA pass, we're looking to get more than 50% of students that have over 50% pass there. You've actually seen from last year, from 2021 to 2022, a decline in the pass rates at the NGSA level. So you're spending more money, but you're getting worse results on such important metrics as pass rates at the NGSA. This is ridiculous, and it's an indication, again, of what we're talking about. The government spending money and wasting the money, and guys not getting any value for it. Rather, we should be putting that money in, some of the other areas that are critical, and we should be training teachers and going back to some of the methods that we used under the coalition to bring up these marks.
Make no mistake about it. The People's Progressive Party is in denial mode. The People's Progressive Party is on a path to ensure that its critical objective of repaying debts associated with campaign funding and securing resources for future campaign, that those targets are achieved. And it cares not about the citizens of this country. Make no mistake about it. And in its avoidance of critical issues, in its ignoring of critical issues in its mode of denial, you are not hearing government speakers addressing, government members addressing the fact that the non-oil sector has been in consistent decline.
Yeah.
That the agricultural sector in particular, which has always been the mainstay of the Guyanese economy, is collapsing.
Yeah.
Rice, I listened to MP Vince Roy Jordan, who spoke to the issue of rice in particular, with Guyana having its lowest ever production output in any 1 year in rice.
Yeah.
So you're not hearing government members speaking to these issues. You're hearing about all the money that we're going to spend without recognizing that if you take oil revenues away, our economy would be in shambles. So what if oil dries up tomorrow?
Well,
agriculture is dead.
I give you a concrete example. What if there's another variant of COVID and the oil price drops straight down? Because that could totally happen. That could very much happen.
That is a real possibility.
When you don't have, I think, a deliberate plan as to how you're going to move these industries forward, and you end up in this absurd situation. Now, you talked about rice, but we've also seen the lowest production for sugar.
Of course.
Missing the targets by huge numbers at the mid-year.
And more than $100 billion being flushed into the Guyana Sugar Corporation.
Over a period of time, huge amounts. Last year at the mid-year point, they missed their target by 70 to 80%. They missed their target.
In fact, one sugar estate, Iflot Sugar Estate, produced 8 tons of sugar.
Yeah, wow. Well, put it this way. We understand that sugar workers must be faced with a lot of anxiety as to whether or not this corporation will even survive. And what we're saying is that when we look at sugar in this country, we have got to carry out the right studies to ensure that we have a Gaisuko which is not just focused on sugar, but focused on various other areas that we can see economic benefit to the country and where we can move people's lives forward. The other thing I would point out is the wages at Gaisuko, as much as the government is pumping money in, not great wages.
No, $2,500 per day for field workers. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's rough.
Field workers are staying because of the benefit package that is due to them at retirement. So it's just long service persons that are staying.
Yeah.
Now the government is creating a situation where it's competing with itself for labor. So it's pouring billions into Gaisuko.
Yeah.
And it's pouring billions into public infrastructure. They're bragging about housing and so on. And the limited available labor supply is gravitating towards the more attractive remuneration.
This is what we really would anticipate as one of the problems we face in an economy driven by oil, is that the productive sectors will pull their labor away from agriculture.
But interestingly, before you get to that fundamental point, just hold it right there for a second. There's a supplemental point here to be made. Gaisuko was suffering from a less than 51% worker turnout. Now, if you're going to, and at that stage they were blaming mining, the mining sector was dragging their employees away. Now you have invested in other aspects of public infrastructure works, and you're paying the kind of wages that you're paying at Gaisuko. The employees are shifting. So what purpose does the pouring of money in billions and tens of billions into Gaisuko do to help lift the sugar industry up?
Well, one of the key things that we recognize about agriculture and that we keep stressing is, in order for agriculture to really survive and thrive in Guyana, we have to ensure that the productivity of agriculture is increased. We have to ensure that agriculture's, the production per acre and so on is increased, so that wages can follow that. We can have higher wages, we can have very profitable agriculture. If we continue to produce in an efficient way, if we continue to throw funds at Gaisuko without a plan as to how we're going to increase productivity, what's going to happen is there's going to be more and more pressure for Gaisuko workers to go and work in other areas. And of course, the corporation will not be able to, in the long run, function. So we've got to look at how we can make Gaisuko productive. We've got to look at how we can make various of agricultural industries productive. And we always try to bring up the example of the Netherlands, which is one of the highest food producers, I think it's fourth or third in the world. But it's right in the name, Netherlands. There's no land. Yeah. They're very productive. We've talked about $1 million grants to farmers to buy equipment. We're not just saying that because we want to give farmers $1 million or $10 million. We're saying it because we want to help those farmers to have the right technology to be able to produce in a very productive way that will raise their wages, that will ensure that people do not leave agriculture and we're not left with an economy totally dependent on oil. That's how this must be approached. The government seems to be disinterested in dealing with agriculture in a serious way, I would say.
I think viewers need to be reminded there's so much happening and there's so much that has happened over the years that I get a sense that viewers need to be reminded that Guyana benefited in the early years from preferential prices for sugar, cane sugar. The European Union at one point in time notified the government of Guyana, I think 15 years in advance, that the preferential price will be withdrawn.
Yeah, eventually.
By a specific time.
Yeah.
And that what the European Union was prepared to do and did in fact fulfill is that it funded what it called a project for the repositioning and retooling of the Guyana Sugar Corporation.
Yeah, absolutely.
To deal with the
to get the productivity levels up, so that the prices will come down, so that they can keep purchasing each other,
and they can be competitive at the world market prices.
Exactly.
Where the forces of demand and supply determine your price. Now, what did the People's Progressive Party do with this money? They took it and they established a white elephant at Skeldon, and they created a sugar packaging plant which serves no purpose. Brings in no sensible, no real revenue. And so the expectation at that time was that at minimum, since Gaisuco produced 2/3 of the cane required for the production of sugar, and private cane farmers produce 1/3, that the money would have been appropriated accordingly, that Gaisuco would have been able to retool its activity and so on. It's using 2/3 of the money from the EU, and that the cane farmers, the private cane farmers, would have benefited from technical support along with 1/3 of that package, 1/3 of that package, so that they could lift their game as well. The private cane farmers of this country got absolutely nothing from that. Now, here we are at a place in time when the resources that were targeting the improvement of cost-effective management of Gaisuco and lifting its productivity have been squandered. We are now struggling to catch up. At a time when Cuba has reduced its sugar output, so I think to domestic quantities, Trinidad has come out of it, Jamaica has come out of it, Barbados. And the brilliant minds of the People's Progressive Party decided Guyana will up its production to fulfill the markets voided by the pulling out of these other sugar industries around CARICOM. Visionless. A complete waste.
Totally not having an idea of the direction the sugar industry should go. And we want to point out to viewers, since we talk about Gaisuco, we talk about opportunities for the future of Gaisuco, that under the coalition, Gaisuco was producing far more sugar. Far more sugar than they're producing at the PDP now. I think more than double the amount of sugar.
And there were measures put in place where the clinics run by Gaisuco were placed under the purview now of the Ministry of Public Health at the time, where a lot of the drainage work, the maintenance that was done by Gaisuco was handed over to the NDIA. So, and a number of the recreational facilities.
Well managed. The funny thing is that the PDP has all these aims in mind with the sugar industry. All they have is a track record of failure. What's the point of all the lofty promises if they can't deliver on anything?
And the injury to the Guyana Sugar Corporation as an entity is rooted at Freedom House. with the shutting down of Leonora and a number of other
And
estates.
of course, the failure of Skelton. Really, Skelton was supposed to save the industry. I believe Jack himself said, without Skelton, sugar is dead, something to that effect, if my memory serves.
Well, look at what was Guy Suko's senior staff compound now.
Mm-hmm.
The person who holds the highest office in the land has as his home the former guest house, senior staff guest house.
Okay.
And associates of the government now literally own the remaining area of it.
Yeah.
But which was awarded under strange circumstances. It was supposed to be downstreaming of wood forestry products.
Well,
it's now a scheme with a mall and private hospitals. But so the issue really is that budget 2023 is a budget of largesse for the closely connected.
Yeah.
And it ignores the plight of the majority of people in this country.
Yeah.
The working class, the working poor, the underprivileged.
Absolutely. The average Guyanese totally ignores the average Guyanese. Because you look at it, if 40-something% of these people in this country can't afford nutrition diet, you're talking about middle class people as well.
Of course
you're talking about the typical Guyanese being in a difficult position. And even those who are maybe a little bit above, maybe getting a little bit more income, they must be stressed because they can barely get by.
To the extent that you eat a later breakfast and an earlier dinner omitting lunch.
All of that.
That is known to be happening.
Viewers, again, we want to remind you that Guyana is growing at 25% this year, that it grew at 62% last year, that the previous year it grew at 20%, that the previous year it grew at 43%. It is ridiculous that Guyanese have to be punishing. It is because the PDP has decided that Guyanese should punish, and there is no reason for it whatsoever. We could have been in a situation where there was no oil, and we were facing the same cost of living crisis.
Of course.
Well, what has happened is that all the measures are measures that we could have seen without oil. Where are the measures that we expect to see from this so-called booming economy? We have shown you right in the beginning of this show that there was a whole 60 billion of excess revenue that nobody knew was coming, that the government has sitting there that it could use to deal with the cost of living crisis directly.
But ignores the crisis.
Ignores the crisis, and that works out to $300,000 per household that the government could provide to households across this country. That's quite a chunk of change. Even if the government took that money and said that, did some of the things we proposed, whether it is grants to farmers for production, whether it is keeping a cap on the price of gasoline so that the cost of transportation is low, whether it is giving further vouchers to canter operators and minimus operators so that you have a nice low price when they're bringing goods from the farm to the market.
Yeah.
We understand that food inflation is the most serious element of this.
And that's why we're somewhere in the region of 13% as a subsector.
By itself, which is why people, when they go to the market, they're always alarmed by what they see. Now, viewers, we again want to point out the reason that food inflation is so critical is that you can't really get away. You have to eat food. You have to eat something. Yeah. And those who do not have the means on the low end of the income scale, they spend a larger share of their budget on food and so are more impacted.
Yes.
The wealthy people in this country may have stocks, may have housing, may have businesses, may have fancy other investments. They are making money from those things. But poor people and the average Guyanese, they're not able to do that. And so they now are actually suffering in a time of plenty.
Yeah, well, budget 2023, a national man-made disaster.
Man-made disaster.
For the people of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Viewers, I want to thank you very much for spending the last 35 minutes with us. Elson, it was wonderful chatting.
Always good to be on.
And I'm hopeful that we have been able to shed just a little bit of light for the benefit of our, particularly our working class population, who are hardest hit by the realities of cost of living. Although it does in fact impact every single guy. So thanks again and we'll ask you to stay with us as we get ready to continue coverage of Budget 2023.